So thanks for coming, folks. I'll recognize Mr. Neal and have him give everyone an update and go from there.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. The commissioner said I can't come again because every time I come, they close the highway for some reason. So I got to see 16 today. Pretty country out there. So the update is we're down to 2 issues on the term sheet. I want to back up. Remember, the process is we're going to put together a term sheet, present that to the public, and then we'll have 1, maybe 2 public sessions to discuss not only the term sheet, but whether you want the project to go forward, or you want to put a moratorium on the project. Everything involving the project will be open at that point for discussion. We're down to 2 points. I'm confident we'll get it out this next Monday, since we're just down to the 2 points, and the next year folks are here. If you see me kind of go in and out, we're discussing those 2 points. We're going to try and put them to bed today so that we can get the document in a presentable fashion to disclose to the public. So that's the update. By the way, some of y'all said some condolences for my father-in-law. Appreciate that. That's very nice of y'all. If you don't know, my father-in-law passed away recently, so thank you for the commissioners for being patient with me. So anyway, I'll open it up for questions or comments. I stunned everybody to silence. Yeah, if only I could do that good of a job at the next meeting, right?
Questions and comments for Mr. Neal?
Are they 2 big issues?
Money and setbacks. Yeah.
Money as in the pilot?
Money as in what taxing scheme will be imposed on the project, whether that be by virtue of a regular taxing scheme or a payment, and the amount. And those are obviously the 2 biggest issues in the project. But those are the 2 open items.
How far is the setbacks are you thinking?
Not going to disclose that till we submit it. So you know, they want less, we want more.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
But
well, what keeps you from down the road? Somebody, okay, you name 1 hog farm, 1 cow lot, 1 airport, 1 anything that's within a quarter mile from a property line.
yeah.
I mean, you might say it's grandfathered in, but I had health insurance and we changed health insurance, and my grandfather went away.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what upsets me.
Well, sure, and that's so I'll answer that in 2 steps here, and that's a great comment. So we're doing this project as an agreement with this company. I have presented to the commissioners, and the commissioners are considering legislation which will govern wind farms and solar farms on a going forward basis. In essence, that's a zoning law.
Well,
right? Right now, the county doesn't have a zoning law.
No, I'm glad.
Right. Yeah, and I have found, this is my personal opinion, that most people in communities don't want zoning laws, unless you're in a big city or something like that. I will say that is good on the one hand to put that law in place, because then you know the rules. If another company wants to come in and put in a wind farm, they know the rules, the citizens know the rules, and it makes it a lot easier on the commissioners. They just enforce the law. On the other hand, that's kind of the camel's nose under the tent a bit.
I mean, we were grandfathered, and it cost me $800 more a month for health insurance.
Well,
and we were grandfathered, and that's just gone.
Yep, and that's a bit of the camel's nose under the tent for maybe larger zoning rules. But at the end of the day, it's not that.
Yeah,
it's only wind and solar.
I know what it's supposed to be, but
and then it would be up to the citizens to make sure, and if that is your will, not to allow future zonings, or certainly express your desire not to have future zonings.
But like I said, get it started once, and then it's just.
And I will tell you, if that is a concern, which I certainly think it would be, is you need to express that at the public meeting, and just like you expressed it here, because
I mean, you think about it. You show me one hog confinement or 1 dairy farm or anything that's less than I mean, most hog confinements are 150, 200 foot from property lines. Most dairy farms are probably 300-400 feet from property line. I got my bunk line, it's next to the property line, and, yeah, I mean, everything in the county.
Well, and that goes to the fundamental issue. So, you know, a lot of citizens want 2 miles or a mile.
Well, yeah, it's
setback.
stupid. It's stupid.
Well, no opinion of the public.
Well,
I want to begin with
yeah.
that. But also, once you start going to that level for this project, then what comes next?
Yeah, that's why yeah.
You know, do you want that level of setback for a stockyard
yeah.
or for a drain tower? And I'm not trying to be
No,
doomsday.
I know.
There's some middle ground there that makes sense.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
the
you know,
public feels
they
good
need to
about.
have a setback. I think, you know, probably from my house, you need to be a half mile from, you know, but property lines, that's, I mean, you're out in the middle of nowhere, and that's where,
Sure,
yeah.
I certainly hear that, and I will tell you that has been a topic of big discussion.
I can imagine it has been.
And listen, there's some place in the middle that makes
Yeah,
sense.
no, I know, yeah.
There is.
Yeah.
If you go too far extreme, right, well, no one can do business.
No, the county
If you go too little, well, then, you
Yeah,
know,
everything
you got
comes
too
in.
much stuff around you, and it's not safe.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Other questions, comments? Sir?
Maybe this is more for the commissioners, but there was an article by this Stephen Nolan, he's an MD, he's an academic clinical neurologist at the Yale University School of Medicine. And he puts in here that so people understand what the noise level is. He says at 300 meters, and they've done studies on this, and give you some other real quick ideas. In the UK, they attribute 40,000 deaths due to air pollution, and in the US, $131 billion is spent on air pollution for health issues. Okay, he says at 300 meters, that wind tower will be less than your refrigerator in your house, noise-wise, at 300 meters. And I think a half a mile setback is certainly infringing on the people who own the property that want the tower's rights to have a tower.
Sure. Well, and I'll address that. In our term sheet, we address, my apologies, I'll turn this off. If anyone wants to talk to my daughter in college, she wants money.
Well, if it's like mine.
Who has the hat? Yeah. Let's pass the hat, boys. She's K-State, yeah.
That's one good thing. They said.
She's at K-State, but anyone wants to talk to Sophia, feel free to take this call, boys. But, you know, one thing we've addressed in our term sheet is a limitation on noise at the structure. And what we've asked NextEra to do, they're going to be required in this term sheet to go out to the public and hold public gatherings where they talk about some of the concerns people have raised, noise, infrasound, things of that nature. And what they're going to tell you is that the decibel level we've agreed to is really equal to an appliance running in your house. Now that's not right. It's objective. It's not, you know, science. You measure it. Sound can be measured, and they've agreed to do that. And if they exceed it, then we've created a process where you can make a complaint, and then the process whereby they try to handle it. And then if they can't handle it, it ultimately can go to the commissioners. But you're correct. Sound can be measured, right? And at least the studies that I've reviewed, the sound is not going to, at the level we're agreeing to, the sound is not going to be more than you would normally hear in your house. So, very good point. Other comments, thoughts?
At that sound level, then, do they already say if it's gonna match the sound in your house, how far away did they figure that was from a house then?
Yeah, so what you do is you measure it on a decibel level. So distance doesn't matter so much as it matters, but as far as the requirement we're putting on them, it's go, no go. Either exceed or you're below the threshold measure at a structure. So that'd be a house, a business, something like
Does
that.
anybody have that measurement though, you know, really for distance?
He's not going to tell us that yet.
No, I don't necessarily know that. I don't have that here, but when they show it, they have some pretty neat examples of, at this distance, this is what you would normally hear, at this distance is what you normally
They
hear.
just measure off
Yeah,
windows.
Yeah.
That's right. And that goes into our consideration for the setbacks, right? So what we have is a density study, which is a fancy term for, it's a map showing where all the houses are and structures in Nemaha County. And then if you look at the setbacks, you draw a circle around where you propose the turbines, and you see the impact of what structures are in relation to where those turbines could potentially go, right? But as far as, do I have that right now? No, I've seen it, but I can't spout it out to you.
I figured there's probably, like at 1,500 feet and 2,000 feet, the decibel gradually starts dropping off.
Yeah, but they have some interesting examples and that they give that gives distance and versus what you would normally hear on a day-to-day basis and what that means to you. And certainly when you get that information, I'm not saying believe them, right? Go check it. It's the great thing about measuring noise is it's objective. It's not subjective. You can determine precisely what that noise means and at what level it is versus other common things.
So if it's above that, we just have to file a complaint, or they have to turn them off?
Yeah, so what we have is, we have a structure, and this applies to whether they run over your rose bushes, right? Or they exceed the noise level. Right? So we have a 24-hour hotline, right, that you call and you log your complaint. Then they're required within a certain amount of time to try to handle that complaint with you informally. Right? If they fail to handle that complaint informally, right, then that complaint goes to an insurance carrier that we're requiring them to have insurance to fix a complaint. Now, if they run over your rose bushes, that's pretty easy, right? It may be sentimental value, but money value, there's value to that. And they make a claim, you get a settlement, go on about your business. There is a requirement that they shut it down if they cannot objectively show that that noise value is less than what they're required to have. But there's a process there, and there's going to be a little bit of an annoyance, because what will happen is someone will leave the flap off, and the flap will beep, and it'll be really loud, and you'll call, and it'll take them a little time to get out there and fix that problem, and that'll be some annoyance. But my two options were either A, have those complaints go directly to the commissioners, or have them try to handle it informally. And I think the quickest process is to give them a shot to handle it informally. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
The only question is if I don't like how they plan to take care of the noise, then it goes to...
Well, so let's say they come out and say, well, ma'am, we measure it less. And you go, well, no, I disagree with that. Okay? Then you make a claim on their insurance. Probably not going to do much because there's not money value there, right? Then you can take it to the commissioners. Okay? The commissioners can make them stop that. Stop the turbine, right? And we no longer allow you, pursuant to our ordinance, to run this turbine. If it gets to a point where you don't agree with the commissioner's decision and you don't agree with their decision, you'd have to sue them. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay.
Is it a set decibel level, or is it variable throughout the day, like
set.
Evening?
Just set. Yeah. And I bet there might be some, there's probably maybe a more nuanced way we could have approached it. But
I was just asking because I've seen some where, after 9 p.m. to 6 or 7 a.m. they have a lower setting.
Yep.
Decibel level on some of the...
Yeah, I saw that, and at least the information I saw made me believe that the number was low enough, okay, to where, and comparable to other things you would normally hear, I was comfortable making my recommendation to the commissioners to keep it as a set number. And there's also a bit of another nuance there. If it's a set number, right, I can go test it. And you're either go, no go, right? You're either wrong or you're right. Whereas if we have to worry about timing and you saying it's this loud at a certain time, I thought that might create some ambiguity. I might have missed it on that, but you guys will see the term sheet, and I encourage you to come forward. Your approach may be the better approach after we hear discussion on it, but that's the way I approached it. And I think the more complex you make the agreement, the less likely it is that it's going to be enforced the way you want it. I like things as simple as possible and as objective as possible. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
One other little thought about this, these setbacks and health issues with it, because I know some people here were talking about this. This doctor, that they do lots of studies, and they showed in 2014, it says psychological factors which have been shown to influence the reports of health effects for mostly from people that found wind towers annoying, eyesores, and they did not gain any economic benefit from them. And in Australia in 2017, they viewed almost exactly the same thing. They were caused by proximity. It was the political view of the person, not the distance from the towers.
Yeah,
And I mean, these are studies done by that university.
Sure. Well, you know, I think most of you know, or some of you may not know, but you're about to know, where I make my living is representing developers. It's the first time I've represented a county. I've always been on the other side of this discussion. And when I was younger, I always took the approach of someone who doesn't want my project to go through, right? They must not have gotten money, or they're just against us. And as I did more of them, I began to fully appreciate that there are people that genuinely are concerned about things involving their health in projects. Whether I agree with that or not, they have genuine concerns. And if a person has a genuine concern and they can present it, I believe they should be heard. I'm not discounting that man's studies, but I will tell you, I've gone through a lot of these, and you may not agree with everybody, but a lot of people sincerely have issues with projects, all sorts of projects, not just this one, any project. But also that goes back to our very democratic system of stand up and be heard, so that the commissioners can take those complaints, make a decision on it. That sobered everybody up.
Other questions, comments?
Have you decided where they'll be located? The turbines?
No. No. We have the footprint of the area outlined. We do not know the exact locations. And frankly, they can't determine that until we come to an agreement on the setbacks.
Yeah, well, I guess the area.
Yes.
Are they across the county? Is there certain townships they're restricted to?
Yeah, so the way we approached it was, number one, your main restriction is going to be the setbacks, right? Whatever that comes out to. And then we have set up areas that they cannot have them. These are areas that either the public has expressed concern and the commissioners agree with those concerns, or areas that, frankly, we just don't want them there, right? These are called the exclusive areas, the exclusionary zones. And when we present the term sheet, there'll be a map there that shows you the areas they can't be, or they've agreed not to go, I should say. But anywhere outside of those exclusionary zones in the county, as long as they meet the setback requirements, they can put a turbine there. Does that answer your question?
No, but I guess I'll wait till Monday.
Yeah, you have to look at the map.
Yes, that's what I.
Yeah, but the process is there.
Okay.
Are they voluntarily keeping them away from towns like Seneca so far, or Sabatha?
Yeah, within a radius.
Like, how far can you say?
Not right now.
There you go. Okay.
I believe most people find the radius acceptable. I was pleased
yeah,
with it.
My concern, or my opinion is, if they're keeping them that far from Seneca, why shouldn't they keep them from non-participating houses? If they're very, saying they, why not just put them a half mile from Seneca, all the way around Seneca?
Sure.
I mean, if they're so safe for everybody, why not do that? That way everybody in Seneca can enjoy too.
Can I maybe answer that? Got to realize the city of Seneca and other municipalities need room to expand. And if they got wind towers a mile from town, it limits the ability of the town to grow.
And how far has Seneca grown in the last 20 years?
Quite a bit.
I imagine that Seneca ain't gonna grow more than a mile all the way around in the next 20 years.
Well, I think the challenge there, the statement really is, in my opinion, is the way to deal with where they are located is at least our approach to it, was to pick areas where, in our opinion, we would not prefer to have wind turbines. Either aesthetically, we don't think they should be there, or it's a high density of population there, therefore we believe it not as safe, right? But in the areas where they can go, then the protection is really the setback. Right? The reason you wouldn't ring, from a practical standpoint, wouldn't ring a town is that 2,500 feet would come into play around it. But, you know, technically they could do that as long as they meet the setbacks and they're outside these exclusionary zones. Yeah. It's hard to balance between, because if you protect too much, right, then there's people that might want a turbine and get paid for it, and they would want that. So that's a very private right that at the essence of what we're doing, we're getting between two private parties wanting to do a transaction, and we're basing that upon the health, safety, and welfare of the county as a whole.
Right.
That's an interesting balance. It's hard to hit. It really is.
But on the same token, if you have a farmer that uses dicamba and to make his crops nice and it blows over to the neighbors, is the neighbor going to say, oh, well, I guess it's just like having a turbine here. If it affects the neighbor, oh, well, right? I mean, that neighbor farmer's going to be pissed off and sue your ass for having damaged his crops. So.
You can't sue them.
For dicamba?
No.
You can't? Well, I bet there's...
You can try. Won't work.
I bet there's some kind of recourse.
No.
I bet there is.
You try it.
Try it.
Try it.
Yeah, try it.
Yeah, and you know, I don't want to go down the dicamba side. That's a hot topic right now.
Herbicides is a different day.
Yeah, let's pick that one up on the next
Trying that, but it
meeting.
just don't work.
Is that on Wednesdays, you have the herbicide?
Yeah, no, it is not.
Whether it's dicamba or herbicide or something, if you do something that affects your neighbor is what I'm saying. Maybe not dicamba or whatever, but something that affects your neighbor that you do. Same difference here if you do something that affects your neighbor, whether it's spraying or whatever. I mean, it's the same difference. What you're doing on your property, if it affects your neighbor, there should be it needs to be back far enough.
I guess it depends which side your fence on.
Well, we have another question over here, guys. This one's kind of petering out here, so I'm going to go over here.
Is it going to be the same distance setbacks from every town, like Centralia, Corning? It's going to have the same setback as Seneca?
I'll answer that, but with a different term. Okay, so I'm going to call them exclusionary zones, these envelopes where you can't put anything, right? It's consistent among the towns, the incorporated towns, and also including one unincorporated town. And then there's a whole swath of the county that we've said you can't put anything there. So it is consistent among the incorporated towns, including one unincorporated town. And then for a certain area, outside of those envelopes around the town, there's a whole area that's excluded. So, and, you know, the map will be colored and stuff. It'll be pretty easy to figure out where it is. And then, of course, the setbacks then would apply for everything in between. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Sure.
I know when they first came in and signed up, they were talking like 1,400 feet. I know at a meeting we was at a month or so ago down Corning, and they said, well, they were going to shoot for 2,000, which only you and them know. But I also asked Mark, I said, well, what if someone had 2,000 and they says, hey, our contract said 14, would they allow the single farmer something to say, hey, I want one 1,500 feet from the house, instead of say if you agree on 2,000?
Yeah, we have agreed to give them the latitude. If they have the agreement of the property owners, they can vary from the setbacks if the property owners agree to it. Yep. Listen, if you own land and they otherwise meet all the other rules and you say you want them 100 feet across from one another, that's an exaggeration, by the way. I don't even know if it works that way. Have at it, man. As long as they're otherwise complying with the rules, it doesn't affect anybody else. It only affects you and the non-participating landowners around it, and they have their agreements. Have at it.
Other questions and or comments?
When you get the term sheet completed, how will access to that be provided?
Well, let me tell you my vision of it, and we don't quite have the exact method, okay? But here's what I've proposed. Number one, I've required that the developer Next Era assist us with publishing it. So they have to send it out to all the affected participating and within a certain radius non-participating landowners. They have to send a copy of this term sheet along with a notice of where we're going to meet and discuss it. Secondly, they have to assist us in publishing it on our various social media sites. So it'll be the county social media and also on their site, so that we can electronically get the word out as well. Beyond that, it would be published normally like the commissioners would publish anything else as far as both the term sheet or the meeting would be held. The last vision I have is that we would have hard copies here, and that we would have an electronic copy that upon request we could email it. So that seems like a pretty good way to get to folks. I thought it was pretty comprehensive, and also I'm glad NextEra agreed to help us, because that can be manpower and cost of just sending this stuff out is actually, I mean, y'all don't want to pay me to come up here and stuff envelopes, I'll tell you that right now. So we'll get NextEra to help us on that.
And has there been any discussion on length of time to review for hearings, or length of hearings from when that term sheet is produced?
Yeah, we've discussed that. The actual gap between when it's published and when there's hearing, we haven't decided on that yet. But here are some overall themes, right? Theme number one is we want to hold it at a time where the most people can participate. You know, Tuesday at 9 a.m. May not be the best time to have the discussion. So we've certainly talked about having it in the evening and at a more public forum, like a gymnasium or somewhere where we can get enough people in there, right? We've also discussed the method by which people talk. As you might be surprised by this, but some people can talk a little bit longer than others, right? So, we'll have a sign-up sheet, more than likely, and a time limit. And once you get through that first sheet, if you want, and there's still time allotted for the overall discussion, you can go on the reserved time sheet. That way, if you want to talk twice, have at it. The exact length of that limit of your talking, we don't know yet. But that's at least some themes that we're talking about. And I think they're all good themes. You want to give folks enough time to talk. You don't want to let them prattle on forever so that everybody can talk. And you want to have it at a location that has enough people there. And you want to have it at a time where the most people can show up. Probably the biggest issue is whether it's one meeting or two meetings. That's probably the biggest discussion point right now. And by the way, if anyone has better ideas than that, let us know. But those seem like pretty good points from which to work.
But you go have the setback 2,000 feet from the property line if the neighbor didn't sign?
Well, we don't know the exact setback right now. Okay, so let's begin with that. It'll be in the term sheet when we publish it. And it's not like I know it and I'm not telling you. That's still negotiating right now.
There's 5,280 feet in a mile, which I know you know that.
Yes, sir.
But a quarter says half of that. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people with a quarter could not get a wind turbine on their farm.
Yeah, so I think your question may be from the property line or from the structure, from the house. Is that your question, sir?
Well, I thought it was from the property line to the turbine. That's what I'm taking it. And if it's 2,000 feet, that's basically going to eliminate anybody that's got a quarter if the neighbors didn't sign in.
I see your point. Well, as to the measuring distance, that's still open as well, whether it's from the property line or from the structure.
So if you had a section of ground, maybe if you owned all of it, you might get one out in the middle. That's not right. Where we bought it, we pay taxes.
Sure.
I don't want somebody else telling me what to do.
I think that is a very important sentiment to have. The other side of that is we're worried about our health and it's an eyesore. Those are the two competing
but talk about noise. Years ago, everybody had 2 or 3 windmills.
Sure.
And they didn't grease them. And there was a lot more noise from those windmills. And I've been around these turbines.
No, where I grew up, sometimes we'd go grease them ourselves so they were quiet.
Yeah.
I probably wasn't allowed to climb those windmills, but my granddad told me to do it, and I did it. I know exactly what you're talking about. And that goes to the overall point. I think I've said this in the beginning is, for us to deal with this company, and some people may have a different opinion, but this is a good company. It's a reputable company. They do good work. They have longevity to them, which means they've been around. So the likelihood of them going away is much less than a pop-up company, which means, to put it in your parlance, they're going to grease their windmills a lot more than other folks might.
But those windmills don't make as much noise as these wind turbines. I've been around them. And you start talking about noise.
Sure.
All these semis going up and down the road make a H lot more noise. And hell, you go to the ball game. There's a lot of noise there.
There is.
So are we going to eliminate this?
That's right. And, you know...
and I don't have nothing against ball games.
I don't have anything.
But there's noise.
There's noise. There's noise. As we exist in our daily lives, there's noise, right? Do I think some of those concerns are legitimate? Absolutely. I'm not going to question someone's heartfelt concern. But I believe when you take the noise level we've set and compare it against stuff you would hear in your regular daily life, the folks will have less concern, which is what we're trying to show. You know, that the noise restriction we put on you is what you're going to hear every day, or less than what you would hear every day. As far as the setbacks, we're still negotiating.
But we got customers in northeast Colorado, right joining the Nebraska line on the north, and 10 miles Nebraska line on the east. And this one customer has got a wind turbine, I'd say less than 100 feet, which I wouldn't want that close, from his machine shed.
Sure.
But he said, hey, he's got a bunch of them. He said it sure made foreman easier.
Yeah, I can see that. Other questions? Sorry to move off.
Yeah, I'm through.
All right. Other questions? Comment?
I was just gonna say about the setbacks on a quarter. At 1,000 feet, I have, I don't know, 1,600 acres, but I've got one whole half section and 3/4. If they go to 1,000 feet, will not have a tower. Because, not necessarily because of anything other than the way the quarters are made. The valley runs through the middle of them, landowner over here and one over here, neither one of them signed up. The towers can't be, if they change it to 1,000 feet, they're gonna be in the middle of the creek.
Right.
And it just so happens that quite a few of my quarters just happen to lay that way, and that half section lays exactly like that.
Yeah, and you're going to find a lot of very particular examples where
But there's no house on it. You know, there's no house that would interfere. I'm just saying that if you do by the fence line, the houses are another half or 3/4 of a mile from the fence line, and there's one. And really, I mean, you know, that, I know that where these quarters of mine are at are high, that's one of the highest points in this county.
Sure. Well, and I'll tell you this, there's going to be a lot of very specific examples where either you're going to like it or you're not going to like it, right? We can't handle every one of them.
I understand that.
Yep. But what we can do is we can set the best rules we can.
So will the popular people vote when you get this term sheet done? Or is it just the commissioners voting on it once the term sheet is done, or what? What process is it?
Yeah, so term sheet will be published, public discussion, then the commissioners vote. Commissioners decide on yes or no to adopt this term sheet and then draft contracts based upon the term sheet. Now there's 3 other things that have been presented which the commissioners, I'm told, are going to take up. Number 1 is whether they want to go forward and look at taking legislation and ordinance to restrict or govern wind towers and solar on a going forward basis. 2, whether to just decline to take the project. And 3, whether to put a pause on it, a moratorium, so to speak, pending there's a state bill that's been presented. So there's more options than do we like the term sheet or do we need to adjust it? There's more options, but yes, it's all the commissioners' vote.
And will it be a popular vote if the commissioners vote, or does it have to be unanimous?
As far as what would rule is 2 out of 3, and I'll confirm that for you, but I believe that's accurate.
Okay.
And by the way, Gary, can you confirm, is it 2 out of 3 or is it unanimous vote to pass?
Oh, 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
I would think a simple majority.
Yeah, that's the better term. Yeah. From a practical standpoint, that means you got to have 2 out of 3.
Anything else?
there's no pollution from any of these wind turbines, is there?
Well, I don't know that I agree with that, and let me tell you why. So one of my main goals was this project ends at a date certain. Okay? And on that date certain, you got to pack up these turbines and get them out, or you got to cut another deal with the county. That includes the safety side of it. Where you're going to find hazardous materials in a turbine is the batteries. Those batteries get old, they leak, right? And that's not bad, it's not good, it is. Therefore, we have to set up a mechanism to make sure those batteries aren't old and just are out there for 40 years and no one touches them, right? One of the purposes of making this project end on a date certain, and then they either pack them up and move them, or they cut another deal with the county, is to make sure that they are refurbishing or replacing those turbines, mainly to make sure those batteries are replaced. Does that make sense? Yeah. So they do have a little bit, not as much. It's not like a big plume of smoke going up in the air, right? It's clean energy, but those darn batteries can leak.
All these farmers, I know they got, now they're a little bit, but they got batteries sitting out there beside the building. That should go.
Yeah, a little different level.
That's just a small deal, but.
Yeah, a little different level on those, but I understand what your point there.
Couple more.
Are you trying to make the setbacks from homes and property lines the same distance? That's what I'm not quite understanding. You know, you're talking like 2,000 feet. Is that from property line of a non-participating member and that of a home the same distance?
Yeah, I led with property lines, and they're pushing back on that. And that's you're hitting the nail on the head on our real open issue is distance and where from. And we haven't resolved that yet. I suspect it's going to be resolved real soon, though. I think we're close.
I would sure think the property line shouldn't have to be as much as a home. I understand the homes.
Yep.
Anything else for Mr. Neal?
All right, thank you all. I'm going to move next door.
I gotta go. Betty's gotta have somebody help fix with dinner.
Thank you, later. Thanks for coming.